Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Houston RCMP pulled off a major drug bust, the Terrace RCMP held their annual Crema Cruiser event on the weekend, and Vancouver Council approved its budget for next year.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Cale Maslin, and here's what's making news in the Northwest and beyond it. The Independent Investigations Office of BC just got notified about a Kitimat incident where a man was shot. This incident happened back on Monday and started with a vehicle getting stolen at around 8 a.m. in the morning, and when an officer tried to stop the vehicle, the driver kept on going. Officers later found the vehicle and tried to take it out with a spike belt, but they were unsuccessful. Not long after that, police got word of the vehicle driving on a sidewalk near a school and almost hitting a woman and her baby in a stroller. Eventually, the situation escalated to the point where the men who seemingly stole the vehicle got shot, and an officer even got some minor injuries of their own. The man's injuries were luckily not life-threatening, and he was arrested for assaulting a police officer with a weapon, as well as dangerous driving, and the IIO will look into the incident further. In a recent news release, the Houston RCMP described an investigation that they had started back on September 6th of this year. The police had gotten word that someone who has ties to drug trafficking was in the Houston area, and as a result, they began collecting evidence over a span of about 2 months that pointed to drug trafficking going on in that area. Early in the morning on November 28th, the RCMP executed a search warrant on a Houston residence and even arrested a man hiding in a neighboring yard. And while he was held in police custody pending a bail hearing, the police also seized several items at the residence, such as 20 grams of suspected cocaine, $4,000 in Canadian currency, and other unspecified items often used as part of the illicit drug trade. The investigation is not over yet, and if you know more about it, you are asked to call 250-845-2204. During a special hockey game against the Prince Rupert Rampage, the Kitimat Ice Demons are looking to local residents to help them out with an annual charity event. The event in question is known as the Teddy Bear Toss, which will see fans throw teddy bears on the ice after Kitimat scores their first goal of the game. The game and event in question will happen on December 15th, and all of the teddy bears thrown on the ice will be given to local charities. The charities will then give them to kids so the bears can provide some comfort to those who really need it during the holidays. Monday morning saw the Northern Health Board of Directors holding a meeting in Prince George in order to discuss various subjects. The meeting early on saw a CEO report released that looked into things like trends regarding the toxic drug crisis and updates on how decriminalization was going. Another report at the meeting was the Human Resources one that talked about employed student nurses as well as the new grad hiring process. In order to get a better idea of all the items discussed at the meeting, such as their many committees, in addition to their Period 7 financial statement, the full agenda is on Northern Health's website. Over the weekend, on December 9th, the Terrace RCMP held their annual Crema Cruiser event, and it was said to be a success. The event saw volunteers put on their Santa hats and prepare to take in all the donations they could and put them inside police cruisers located at the parking lots of Safeway, Wholesale Club, and Save On Foods. In total, the RCMP collected around $2,985 in cash and gift cards, and they were able to stuff all 4 of their available vehicles full of non-perishable food items, and all of the donations have since been given to the likes of the Salvation Army, Terrace Church's Food Bank, and Gassan Place. The Terrace RCMP then went on to thank everyone who assisted them with the event as well as those who donated. Coming up next, we look at some more discussions about the Israel-Hamas war. Welcome back. We are expecting more reaction today to Canada's decision to vote in favor of a United Nations resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war.
Draft Resolution A/ES10/L27 has been adopted.
It marked a shift in Canada's long-standing position of siding with Israel on major resolutions. The United States, Israel, and 8 other countries voted against the resolution. Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, Bob Ray, says the situation in Gaza has become so dire that a ceasefire is the only path forward. Vancouver City Council has approved its operating budget for next year, highlighted by more money for fire and police. It comes as public safety remains a major focus in the region. CTV's Kevin Chirac reports.
Fire Chief Karen Fry says it's been an unprecedented year.
We're sitting at over 68,000 calls already this year, which is more than any other year, and we're not even finished December yet.
On Tuesday, City Council voted to increase the Vancouver Fire Rescue Services budget by around 7%, or $11.5 million. Fry says hiring more firefighters is the main priority. Vancouver Police also getting a significant funding increase of just over $30 million a year, making up more than a fifth of the city's entire budget.
A lot of that will go towards funding the 100 new officers. So there was 100 new police officers approved last year by City Council. So we're still in the process of hiring them. Most of them have been hired already.
The mayor's office also getting a budget increase of $100,000. Ken Sim wasn't available for comment, but his ABC ally, Councillor Rebecca Bly, spoke on his behalf, saying his team will use the funds for variable costs, including attending more events.
And so there's a lot of work that goes into being accessible and available to the public.
She couldn't provide more details on how that money will be spent, something opposition councillor Pete Fry thinks the ABC party should answer.
It's a great question. I'm not really sure. I've been challenged, and I've challenged the mayor's office actually to be a bit more accountable and transparent about what happens, where the money goes, how we're making the spends. And it's frustrating because a lot of this happens behind closed doors.
But the ABC Majority Council moved through the agenda with little resistance. Overall, Vancouver residents will see a property tax increase of 7.5%, 2% below original projections by city staff.
It is 27 cents per day for the average condo owner and 71 cents per day to the average homeowner.
And keeping that property tax increase lower than anticipated was a priority, with Sim and Council agreeing to shuffle up contingency funds just to lower the increase from 7.6 to 7.5%. Other budget items included addressing aging infrastructure and more community policing. Kevin Chirac, CTV News, Vancouver.
A warning, you may find details in this next story disturbing. A Langley mother who is still looking for answers in the suicide of her son says that news of murder charges against an Ontario man gives her hope for justice in her son's case. CTV's Michelle Bernoro reports.
This one with the angel wings with Jaden, and this one of Jaden playing guitar.
These ornaments given to Isabella after the loss of her 21-year-old son.
Every day is hard for me, but I miss him even more these days.
Jaden took his own life in February 2021. Isabella, who didn't want her last name used, says after her son's death, she discovered emails between Jaden and a man named Kenneth Law. Police have announced that 57-year-old Kenneth Law of Mississauga is now facing 14 charges of second-degree murder in Ontario, in addition to the 14 counts he was already facing for allegedly counseling or aiding in suicide. Police claim the accused used a number of online storefronts to sell suicide materials.
The victims and the survivors in this case are someone's son or daughter, brother or sister, or mother or father.
Law is also being investigated in BC for any possible involvement in Jaden's death.
It's infuriating, it's very heavy to carry. It's been a long 2.5 years, but I do see the light at the end of the tunnel with the progress with Kenneth Law's charges.
CTV News reached out to BC RCMP, who said while their investigations into Kenneth Law are ongoing, there was no information they could share.
But Isabella believes the case involving her son's death is moving forward.
Took his laptop, his cell phone, his hard drive, and are going to scour that for their investigation.
Police in Ontario allege Law sent 160 packages containing suicide materials in Canada and 1,200 to 40 countries worldwide.
Difficult to imagine such evil and cruelty to attack someone in such a vulnerable time of their life.
This will be Isabella's third Christmas without her son. She hopes 2024 will bring him justice. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Langley.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast is supposed to get a chance of showers with the low around 5 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area is said to get a chance of showers or flurries potentially, and the low down at -2 degrees. and the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is likely to have clear skies and the low at minus 13 degrees. On the north coast, the next week is likely to see pretty much all clouds and rain, with the high moving between 6 and 8 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, their next week will potentially have some sun to start, but mostly snow and showers after that, with the high shifting from 2 to minus 2 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the week for them will start with sun and then move to clouds, snow, and some flurries after that, and the high bouncing between 0 and minus 6 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there are slippery sections, fog patches, and a geotechnical investigation from east to west, so anticipate delays as you go. The Usk ferry is out of service and the cable car is in effect. On Highway 35, 37, 37A, and 118, all of them have some slippery sections of their own and some fog patches on the Nishka Highway and Telegraph Creek Road, as well as along with a bit of compact ice too. Again, please drive according to the conditions and ensure that you have the proper winter tires mounted and torqued on your vehicle as required by the BC Highway Act. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come is a look at a poll on how much BC spends at Christmas time. Welcome back. UBC is launching a new research center to study how society can coexist with wildfires, which comes as BC battles worsening conditions. The school says the Center for Wildfire Coexistence was made possible thanks to a $5 million donation. Research will look into ways to proactively mitigate fire risks through forest management and focusing on landscape resilience. This summer saw BC's worst ever wildfire season, with more than 28,000 square kilometers burned, and hundreds of structures were either lost or damaged. A newly released poll finds that British Columbians are planning to spend more this holiday season than shoppers in most provinces. The survey also asked about some polarizing holiday foods. Here's CTV's Shannon Patterson.
As we count down to Christmas, Pollster Research Co. asked 1,000 Canadians how they expect the current holiday season to be for them personally. In BC, 57% said more fun than stressful, and 21% said more stressful than fun.
It's a return to the pre-pandemic levels when it comes to the feelings that we have towards the holiday season. More people thinking that they're going to be having fun, fewer people thinking that it's going to be stressful.
It's been well studied. Mood and emotion plays a big role in propensity to shop and to spend.
And when it comes to holiday spending, the poll found British Columbians will shell out more for gifts, food, and decorations than the average Canadian. 48% here plan to spend over $500. Nationally, that number is only 42%.
We continue to see those inflationary pressures, but British Columbia, along with Atlantic Canada, is more likely to put everything aside and say, look, we're going to have fun this Christmas, we're going to spend more money.
But even free-spending British Columbians aren't breaking the bank. When asked how their holiday spending this year compares to last year, 13% said they'll spend more, 22% said less, but the vast majority, 64%, said they'll spend about the same.
Our projection is on aggregate, and factoring in inflation, we're probably going to be flatter down a bit through holiday compared to last year.
The Research Co poll also asked about holiday food.
We've asked it for the past 3 years. This all started because Brussels sprouts can be quite controversial, and there's a group that absolutely abhors them.
But not here in BC. 68% of British Columbians polled said they definitely or probably like Brussels sprouts. That's 8% more than the Canadian average. British Columbians also love eggnog. 65% gave the nod to the nog. That's 9% above the national average.
The highest proportions of eggnog enjoyers are in BC and in Alberta.
But BC and Alberta are at odds over fruitcake. 64% of British Columbians polled said they like it, compared to only 45% of Albertans.
I look at the numbers in Alberta and it's quite striking. There's so many people who hate it.
So serve eggnog, not fruitcake, to your Alberta relatives for a conflict-free Christmas. Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Vancouver.
A new report paints a bleak picture when it comes to charitable donations. Canadians have become less generous over the past 2 decades, and while the report says that people in BC are more giving than others, charities are still feeling the pinch. Rob Buffum has the details.
Their shelves are more bare than usual at this Victoria Food Bank, where donations are down.
Everybody is struggling right now.
In fact, it's part of a trend over the past 2 decades, according to a report released today by the Fraser Institute.
The percentage of taxpayers making donations hit the lowest point since the year 2001. And we're also seeing a general decline in the share of income donated by Canadians as well.
The report is based on the most recent available tax filings from 2021. It shows on average less than 1 in 5 Canadians claim donations to charities, down from a peak of 1 in 4 Canadians.
Due to the price of housing, I can see why charitable donations are going down.
I still do, but I definitely don't do it as much as I used to.
BC was in the middle of the pack in terms of the percentage of people making charitable donations. Manitoba had the highest percentage of folks giving support.
According to the report, although fewer British Columbians on average donate to charities than the national average, those that do are relatively generous, donating more than from any other province or territory. On average, $3,300 a person.
Staff at the food bank say with soaring inflation since 2021, the true snapshot of charitable giving is likely even more bleak.
Over the course of the last couple of years, things would be even harder for donors as well. There's no question things are changing for us daily here.
For example, they had to buy all the milk for the 1,200 Christmas hampers this year. It wasn't donated. And there's no butter for the mashed potatoes.
Butter, even at the wholesale cost, is $4.92 a pound. And when you think about that for 1,200 hampers, that's just something we're not able to give.
Hard truths when demand is up at charities, right when donations are down. Robert Buffum, CTV News, Victoria.
Big meals with traditional foods can be a special part of many holiday gatherings, but they may not always be the healthiest option. ABC's Morgan Norwood is looking at particular ways to trim the fat while still trimming the turkey.
According to a new survey, 2/3 of people say they overeat during the holidays, with close to half saying they skip exercise.
All of these foods are so what we call hyper palatable, meaning they taste so good you can't stop eating them. So I like to recommend that people drink water before their meal and throughout the meal, which takes up some room in your stomach. Focus on eating those dishes that have fruits and vegetables because that's fiber, right? It fills you up without filling you up with a lot of calories.
Dr. Nate Wood is both a physician and a chef. He says that trying to eat healthier around the holidays is not just about how much you're eating. It's also about how these classic holiday foods are prepared. There are ways to make them healthier. Take mashed potatoes, for example.
So if you mash them and then add a whole bunch of butter, a whole bunch of heavy cream, probably not the healthiest, right? But instead, what you can do is add a little bit of Greek yogurt, fat-free, which is tangy and creamy, but doesn't add all that fat.
And you can't have mashed potatoes without the gravy.
Try not to use a bouillon or soup base. It's very, very high in salt. Instead, make your own.
And what about the age-old debate of ham versus turkey? Dr. Wood says there's a clear and healthy choice.
This one's actually pretty easy because ham is a cured meat, and cured meats have been classified, at least since 2015, as being carcinogenic, these processed meats, right? So they're linked to colon cancer. Turkey, however, is a lean white meat. Don't deep fry it, but otherwise that's probably the healthier option.
Regardless of your recipe,
the goal is to savor time with family and friends. So chew your food slowly. Enjoy family recipes, whether they're extremely healthy or not. When you're interested in doing so, take some shortcuts and make some substitutions to make your food healthier.
Morgan Norwood, ABC News, New York.
And now we will turn our attention over to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is up 21/10 of a cent. The price of gold is up $4.10. Oil is up 86 cents. Natural gas is up 2 cents. Aluminum is up $5. In Toronto, the TSX is up 395.61 points. The Venture Index is up 4.05. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 512.30, and NASDAQ is up 200.56. Still ahead is a report on the Canucks' latest win. Welcome back. Brock Boeser is on top of the NHL scoring list again this season after leading the Canucks to a big win on home ice.
Cuts wide, round the net, out the near side. Boeser scores!
Boeser scored his 5th career hat trick as the Canucks beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-1. He's now tied with the Toronto Maple Leafs' Austin Matthews with 21 goals this season. Vancouver's now won 3 straight and will hope to make it 4 when they host the Florida Panthers tomorrow night. Victoria police say an officer has been suspended after new information about a misconduct complaint was brought forward. Police said in a statement the officer was suspended during the course of an investigation, but didn't specify what the complaint was nor disclose the name of the officer. Police say the complaint was made earlier this year, and the Office of the Police Complaint Commissioner assigned the Vancouver Police Department to investigate it. The BC Real Estate Association says weak home sales across BC haven't dented market prices. The BC REA says the average residential price on the multiple listing service in November was up 6.6% compared with prices last year. That comes as 4,630 sales were reported last month, up about 2% from the same time last year. Association Chief Economist Brendan Ogbenson says BC's low housing inventory has helped prices stay elevated despite much reduced sales activity this year. That's all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.